For 3 years, she waved at the trains. When she vanished, the conductors did something no one expected. Welcome to our storytelling corner, where everyday moments turn into unforgettable tales. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments. Where in the world are you watching from? We love hearing from our global family. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss tomorrow's special story. One that just might bring tears to your eyes or a smile to your soul. Thank you for being here with us, and remember, sometimes the smallest moments carry the biggest meaning. See you in the next story. In a quiet corner of Tulsa, Oklahoma, there stood a modest family-run store nestled right beside a long stretch of railroad tracks. To most people, the passing trains were just background noise, steel beasts that roared, by carrying cargo and fading into the distance. But to a little girl named Rio, they were something magical. From the large window of her parents' shop, Rio would watch them go by, her blue eyes wide with wonder. She was only 3 years old when it began. One morning, as a train rumbled past and its horn pierced the air, she raised her tiny hand and waved. She didn't expect anyone to see her. She was just a child, curious and playful, enjoying a moment of innocent joy. But someone did see her. A conductor standing in the open window of the train caught sight of the little blonde girl, and with a smile, lifted his hand to wave back. That simple gesture changed everything. From that day on, it became a ritual. Every time the train came through, Rio was there, standing at the window, waiting. And the conductors, those tough uniformed men with their heavy responsibilities, began to look forward to it. They started honking the horn just for her. It wasn't part of protocol, but it didn't matter. When the train neared the store, they'd slow down just a bit, open their windows, and wave. Rio would burst into a grin, waving both arms as if she could lift the whole train with her excitement. The connection was silent but powerful. They didn't know her name. She didn't know theirs. Yet in those few seconds each day, something beautiful happened. A child's innocent joy collided with the routine of adult life and created a moment of genuine human connection. Rio wasn't just a little girl in a window anymore. To the conductors, she became a part of their day, a reminder of goodness, of purity, of the little things that make life more meaningful. And for Rio, the sound of the train horn became a symbol of friendship. She would run to the window when she heard it, dropping whatever toy was in her hand, her heart racing with anticipation. Her mother, watching from behind, often found herself tearing up at the scene. In a world so often filled with noise and distraction, this small, consistent interaction stood out. It was proof that kindness doesn't need words, that even from a distance we can reach each other. No promises were made, no names exchanged, just waves, smiles, and a shared moment. And that was enough. Enough to build a friendship that would silently grow stronger with every passing train. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the simple wave between Rio and the train conductors became more than just a routine. It became the highlight of their days. For those men driving the long, grumbling freight trains across the heart of Oklahoma, there was something grounding, something human, in seeing that little girl smiling through the window. Amidst their daily responsibilities, tight schedules, and mechanical repetition, Rio was a spark of warmth in an otherwise cold steel world. They started recognizing her timing. She was always there just after breakfast, standing behind the glass, with her hands pressed against it, ready to wave as soon as she heard the horn. Some of the conductors even adjusted their positioning just to catch her face more clearly. Others kept small candies or notes in their cabin windows, hoping that maybe one day they could find a way to pass them along to her. But they never crossed that line. The friendship was wordless, pure, and somehow sacred. They didn't need to say anything. They just needed to show up. Rio, in turn, talked about them constantly at home. Her mother, Brianna, recalled how every evening, Rio would recount which conductor smiled the biggest, which train honked the loudest, and how fast she had to run to make it to the window in time. That window had become her stage, and the trains, her audience of giants. It gave her purpose in the mornings, something to look forward to, something consistent in a world that, to a child, often feels confusing and fast. But what no one realized was just how much Rio meant to the conductors. For them, she wasn't just a cute kid waving from a shop. She was a reminder of innocence, of a simpler time in their own lives before long shifts, bills, and responsibility dulled their wonder. Her wave was more than a greeting, it was an anchor. On rainy days when their boots were soaked and their spirits low, seeing Rio's bright face lit them up. On long routes through isolated stretches, the thought of her waiting by the window gave them something to anticipate. And it wasn't just one conductor. It was all of them. They started talking about her during breaks. "Did you see the kid?" "Today," one would ask. "Yeah," another replied. "She waved with both hands again, made my whole morning." It's funny how something so small, just a child's wave, could create such a big impact. But that's what made it special. It wasn't grand or planned, it was spontaneous, honest, and heart-filling. And while no one said it out loud, they all felt it deep down. If one day that wave stopped, they would miss it more than they could ever admit. And then, one morning, it happened. The horn sounded, just like always. The wheels clattered along the tracks, the engine rumbled past trees and fences and empty fields. But this time, something was different. The conductor leaned out the open window, scanning the storefront. His eyes narrowed, hopeful at first. But the window was empty. No little girl, no blonde hair pressed against the glass, no tiny hands waving with excitement. He blinked, confused. Maybe he was early, maybe she'd overslept. But then the next day came, and the day after that, still no Rio. What had become a reliable, joyful constant was now a painful absence. For 3 years she had been there, rain or shine, weekday or weekend. And now, without warning, she was gone. At first they held on to hope. Maybe she was on vacation, maybe she was sick, maybe the family moved. The possibilities swirled in their minds as they passed that same window again and again, looking, wishing. But day after day, nothing changed, until one morning a small white piece of paper appeared, taped gently to the glass. Just 4 quiet words. She went to school. That was it. No fanfare, no goodbye, no warning. Just a message that broke every one of their hearts. That morning, it wasn't Rio standing in the window. It was her mother, Brianna. She stood there with a sad, soft smile and eyes full of tears. She raised her hand, trying to wave, trying to hold on to the ritual just a little longer. The horn sounded, the window opened, but the energy was different. Now, hollow, quiet. That wave, once filled with innocence and routine, was now filled with grief. And for the first time, those strong, silent men in the locomotive cabins felt something they couldn't explain. It wasn't just the absence of a child. It was the loss of a connection, a piece of joy they had come to depend on without even realizing it. Each time the train passed, the space in the window looked bigger, emptier. And in that emptiness, they were reminded how easy it is to take something beautiful for granted, until it disappears. Rio was growing up, as children do. She had simply moved on to the next chapter of her young life. But for the conductors, it felt like the end of something rare, something they never expected to mean so much. The train kept moving, but in their hearts it felt like they had left something behind. They never got to say goodbye. They never got to tell her how much those waves meant. And that, more than anything, was the hardest part. Weeks passed. The trains kept rolling. Through Tulsa, their horns still echoing through the quiet mornings. But the spark was gone. Every time the conductors passed the little store window, they looked, but it never felt the same. They missed her. They missed Rio. And even though they understood, school was a part of growing up, it didn't make the silence any easier. Then, one morning just after the store had opened for the day, Brianna heard a knock at the door. She glanced up from the register, expecting maybe a delivery driver or a contractor. Repairs were long overdue, and they'd been in talks with a local crew. But when she opened the door, it wasn't a builder standing there. It was a man in a bright yellow work shirt, earplugs hanging from around his neck, boots scuffed from hours on metal and gravel. He looked nervous, almost shy, like he wasn't sure if he had the right place. "Hi, ma'am," he said, glancing past her shoulder toward the big glass window inside. "I was just wondering, the little girl who used to wave at us, is she okay?" Brianna's heart stopped. He was one of them, one of the conductors. She nodded, suddenly fighting back tears. "She's fine. She just started school a few weeks ago." The man smiled softly, like he'd expected that answer but needed to hear it anyway, we figured, he said. "We saw the note, but we didn't want to assume. We just wanted to know. A lot of us, well, we miss her." His voice cracked ever so slightly at the end of the sentence, and in that moment, Brianna realized the depth of it. For 3 years, they had never spoken. No names, no hellos, just waves. And yet those waves had meant something real, something strong. "We talk about her, you know," he added. "Not just me, everyone on the route. She made our mornings better, gave us something to look forward to. We'd be coming through the cold or the rain, and then, boom, there she was. That kid lit us up." Brianna was speechless. The emotion came too fast to stop. Tears welled up as she smiled and said, "You have no idea what that means to hear." He reached into his back pocket and held up a small envelope. "Her birthday's coming up, right? A few of the guys wanted to send her something. If that's okay." Brianna nodded, covering her mouth with her hand. "Of course it's okay," she whispered. "That would mean the world." And just like that, a quiet friendship that had lived through glass and passing steel became something more, something lasting. A group of train conductors had shown up, not just in waves, but in spirit, in kindness, and in memory. Rio may have grown up and moved on, but in the hearts of those men, her wave would always be there. That night after the conductor left, Brianna sat by the window, the same window where Rio had once stood every day, and just stared out at the tracks. It was quiet now. No horn, no wave. But her heart was full in a way she hadn't expected. For years, she had watched her daughter light up every time a train approached, never realizing how much that small gesture meant to the people inside those engines. She always assumed it was just a fun routine for Rio, something sweet to look back on. But now she knew better. It wasn't just a wave. It was a connection, one that had stretched between a child and a crew of strangers, each on their own journey, yet bound together by a moment they all silently looked forward to each. In the following week, on Rio's birthday, a small brown package arrived at the store, tied with simple string and a card that read, "To the girl in the window." Inside were several hand-signed notes from the conductors, a tiny conductor's cap, and even a framed photo of one of the trains she used to wave at, now marked, with her name in black marker on the side, "Engine 8420, Rio's train." When Rio opened it, her eyes lit up brighter than any candle they could have put on her cake. She hugged the cap to her chest, whispering, "They remembered." That moment confirmed everything Brianna had come to believe. Kindness matters. It echoes further than we think. This simple daily interaction, no words, no contact, just a wave through glass, had created a story that touched more hearts than anyone could have imagined. And it wasn't grand or dramatic. It wasn't about big gestures or headlines. It was about presence, about showing up, about recognizing each other in the rush of life. Rio had given joy without even trying. And in return, the men who operated massive, roaring machines had shown her that she mattered, that her little wave wasn't just cute, it was powerful. That's the kind of world we all want to live in. One where people still notice, where strangers still care, where a child's wave can soften a hardened day and a train full of grown men can stop, literally stop, to say, "Thank you." Brianna knew she'd never forget that moment, and she knew Rio wouldn't either. Years from now, when her daughter was older, when the days of trains and windows became faded memories, she hoped Rio would carry this one truth with her. The smallest acts of kindness can leave the biggest impact, And sometimes the people we never even speak to are the ones who remind us what it means to be human. This story may seem simple on the surface, a girl waving at trains, but beneath it lies something deeply human. It's about the power of connection, even without words. It's about how a child's small act can brighten the day of hard-working strangers. Now, we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a moment like this? A brief interaction with a stranger that stayed with you longer than you expected? Maybe someone once waved at you when you needed it most. Or maybe you were the one who made someone smile without realizing it. Please take a moment and share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us where you're watching from, and if this story reminded you of a special moment in your own life. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. And if you believe stories like this matter, stories that remind us of the kindness still left in the world, let us know by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. We post heartwarming stories like this every day, and we'd be honored to have you as part of our growing community. Let's keep the kindness going together.